Whether your beer is in a bottle, can, or glass, kick back and relax. It's Better on Draft.
Welcome, everybody, to the Michigan series. That's right. It's episode 24. My name is Ken. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. We are here live. If you're listening via the podcast, you can always join us live 7 p.m. Eastern at facebook.com/betterondraft or twitch.tv/bod podcast. Let's go around and see what everyone's drinking real quick. Starting with myself, I got the Guinness NA. That's right. We are still sober, going on 6+ months right now. We'll be back here soon in the saddle drinking some delicious beer, including some from what our guest has given us. But let's go and see who else we got. Wendy, what are you drinking?
I have got a Ferndale Project Chonk Wheelie Double NA IPA.
And subbing in for Dan, who's at a wedding, is Dan with an I. Danny, what do you got over there?
I also have Ferndale Project. This is the Affirmations NA IPA.
And Robert, what do you got?
I'm just straight up three-balling right now because I got the Cherry Funfetti, the Affirmations, and just decided what the hell, might as well caffeinate. I got myself some Ash coffee.
Oh.
And we got Nicholas over there. Welcome to the show. What are you drinking?
I had to hurry up and get my beer, and I haven't had a chance to go downstairs to get the other stuff. So whatever was in the fridge upstairs, because, you know, you got to have two kitchens now when you have a kid. I got Wax Wings Triple Projection IPA.
All right. Well, we have some guests in our virtual studio tonight. We're going to start with, we awarded two of them being a 3-time guest, starting with Eric, who is here for his 3rd time. Why don't you say hello and tell us what it is you do now?
Hello. Yeah. My name is Eric Plata, and I'm the Director of Brewing Operations for Eastern Market Brewing Company and Ferndale Projects. And I am drinking a Mas Cerveza from Eastern Market in collaboration with Ferndale Projects. And it's tasting great out of this really cool cup I have.
Beautiful plug. If you raise it a little higher, the people can see it too. We have one of the owners of Ferndale Project and Eastern Market Brewing, Dayne. Dayne, it's been a minute. How are you? What are you drinking?
I'm doing good. It has been a minute. I am drinking the With Her hazy IPA that was released today officially. Rex is actually at Eastern Market right now, hidden in the back room where the release is happening. And I'm actually just drinking a low fill of it. It's great.
Well, you kind of brought him in. We have a gentleman here. This is his first time. Rex, welcome to the show. What do you do and what are you drinking?
Yes. Hello, everybody. Thanks for allowing me to be here. I am drinking our Detroit Pistons collaboration. So 313 IPA, IPA with all Michigan hops, and it's delicious.
Cool can too.
And black on black can. I mean, that's a good look.
All right. Well, I appreciate you guys joining us. The first question, I know we want to get a lot into Ferndale Project, but because a lot of people have joined me in the journey and understanding that I've been sober for the last 6 months, you guys actually brewed a sober beer recently, which was a Goza. Explain to me why you guys got into that project and the whole point of why you brewed it, and are we going to see any other types of NA beers coming in? So I don't know who wants to take it, but you guys decide and go.
Yeah, I can start. We've always kind of had our eye on the NA market. There's a lot of chatter about it. And we heard about this machine that comes from a company called ABV in Minneapolis. It basically, you take a beer, you put it in the machine and it spits out an NA version of that beer and it sucks all the alcohol out and you get a seltzer, which sounds too good to be true. So we took a bunch of our beers in a vehicle and drove to Minneapolis and ran them through the machine, and it was too good to be true. So we're working with this company. We installed their equipment at our Royal Oak facility, and have been testing different beers on it. So the first one that we have launched right now is draft only, is a grapefruit NA Gosa. And the thing that we found is that the sours are tasting really, really good, the NA versions. The non-sours taste good too, but you always kind of expect the beer that's going in. And Elephant Juice NA was okay, but when you compare it to Elephant Juice, it just wasn't quite as good. But we were finding with the sours that they almost held up, and so we're excited to be launching later this year just a line of NA Gosas with different fruited flavors. We're going to keep experimenting, going draft only, and one thing that we want to think about is shelf stability, since there is no alcohol in them. So we're really focused on that before we move into package. But the hope is by the end of the year, we're going to be releasing some package as well.
And before I pass it off to another host to start asking some more questions, kind of give us, because it's been a couple years since you guys have been on the show, prior to Ferndale Project opening. It was still Axel Brewing at that time. You guys purchased another building in Royal Oak. Why don't you kind of give us a timeline of what's happened maybe in the last, let's say, 3 years? Like what is, I know it's a lot, so just, the high end cliff notes, the spark notes.
Where do we start? It's funny. I just ran into a friend that I hadn't seen or spoken to in 6 years. We just kind of lost touch, and I had my old phone back when I had a day job, which I think I had probably the first time I was on the podcast. When I left, they took my phone. I had to get a new phone. He couldn't get a hold of me. He just moved to Ann Arbor. And the last time I sat with him, I had told him that we were thinking about starting a brewery in my barn on my property. And literally he doesn't have social media. He knew nothing since. So I just went through this story with him over coffee, and it ended up being a very long coffee. But for the last 3 years, I mean, the big thing that happened is we opened Ferndale Project. And then, as we're all aware, the pandemic hit. So we had to get really creative. We tripled our team when we opened Ferndale Project. We went from about 15 employees to about 45 employees. Had a really awesome opening. Then the pandemic hit and had to immediately close everything down. So we had to get creative just to survive the pandemic. Ended up launching a bunch of kind of side ventures, and some of them stuck. Probably the most important one for us and just the stability and health of our business was Peddler, which allowed us to deliver beer to people's homes, and that really carried us through the pandemic. And it was cool to hear kind of people's reactions. Like, it brought a little bit of a joy during a very tough time, and so that was the big one that happened in the pandemic. And it got to the point where we were operating all of these businesses and ventures out of the Ferndale location, and there just wasn't room for it, and the place was a mess. So we started to look for other locations where we could really just have a warehousing space. Around that time, Roke announced that they were leaving their Royal Oak location, 16,000 square foot warehouse right in the middle of Royal Oak downtown. And so we jumped on it. And the plan honestly wasn't to brew there. It was just the space, but it happened to be custom built for a brewery. Their equipment went up on auction, and here we are. We have our third brewery where we're actively brewing. It's been a crazy venture.
Now on to me. Hi, Dayne. Been a minute.
Hey.
This is my partner here. A couple things. I want to start with that NA Goza, and I will say that is for me one of the most tasting like alcohol without having alcohol Gozas I've ever had. Until you guys started making Gozas, I just did not like sour beers. But the way that you guys make sour beers and turn things down that don't go to 11, like speciation or Arclight, that it is amazing how you guys do that. Just so that NA Goza, I continually will go back to that. But one thing I actually wanted to ask about is starting with this cherry funfetti. I guess somebody give me a breakdown of what I'm getting here, because this thing, it pretty much, just like what the can and its design is showing me, that it's basically tasting like a damn cherry cake.
Rex, you want to give it a go?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can just break down the beer pretty simple. We like to do like fun experimental sours at Ferndale Project, and this one was kind of like no exception. I think it was more for our like, is it second or third birthday, Dayne? I don't know. Like time flies.
It's our second, but it feels like our
So it was kind of like, you know, we wanted to do like some sort of like cake birthday theme, whatever. But nothing too crazy about it. Standard kettle sour, some cherry, some fun cake batter, some, you know, some vanilla, just allowing us to just kind of be like crazy and, you know, make something enjoyable to drink that, like what you said, is just like, you know, like it drinks exactly like it says.
Yeah, indeed. That's what it does for sure. One thing, actually, a couple things I wanted to ask about, obviously, with the remodel of Ferndale Project. Obviously, that was a pretty lengthy process, and glad that you were able to finally get through with that. But in some of the media outlets, and I've seen it in some of the postings and talking to some of the people who were there when everything reopened, was that you wanted to call this a grand opening as opposed to a reopening. Obviously, I think I get it in that we basically have had Ferndale Project for the entirety of a pandemic, and it's not necessarily an opening when all you've had to do was just kind of be closed and just sell beer out of the door and have everybody outside. But I guess from your perspective, talk to us about what it means for this to be more of a grand opening as opposed to just reopening the doors.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of goes back to the beginning where we put all our resources together just to move into that space and come to a deal with Axel. It's not often that a smaller brewery acquires a larger brewery, but in Eastern Market, we have a 5-barrel brew house. There we had a 10-barrel brew house, and we realized we needed that scale to be more efficient. So we really put everything into the deal. And when we opened, we left the space exactly as it was. And Axel really operated more like a restaurant that made beer, and we were very much beer first. And so the space didn't really fit the way that we operated, and it didn't really have an identity. For a lot of people that were in the neighborhood, it still was Axel or Livernois Tap. But to be fair, we didn't really know who we were back then. And so over the last 2 years, we've really defined who we are, the styles of beer that we make, and how we want the space to operate. And it really is a space for that neighborhood on Livernois, where we have the cafe, we have the restaurant. We talk about it a lot in our marketing. There was a time where we focused a lot on our cans, our releases. But just today, we posted a picture of a NA seltzer that our cafe manager is making. And people are going crazy for it. And it shows that people really like the beer, but they also kind of like all the other facets of what Ferndale Project is. So being able to have 2 years to figure out who we were and then reopen with that identity in place gave us a chance to really kind of just figure it out, and things just operate much smoother. We've got the walk-up window, we have a bodega where there's cans to go. So being able to kind of work through who we are and reopen with that vision was big for us. I wish that we could have done that from day one. And it would be easy to say if we had the financial resource at the time, we would have, but I don't think we knew who we were at that time to be able to, even if we did have the financial resources to do it.
Right. And I guess a quick shout out to 5/8. They're the design company or design studio that helped create the space. I'm curious from your perspective, looking at the design, did it check all of the boxes for everything that you wanted? Was there something that like got left out that you wish you got to be in there?
I would say, well, shout out to Danny Jacobs on our team. He's our creative director. Mm-hmm. His team do all of our labels, so we do everything in house. I will really say that I stepped away from design. It's one of those situations where there's somebody who's much better than you, and you let them run with it. To be honest, I didn't love the renderings, but I was like, Danny knows what he's doing. 5/8 know what they're doing. Functionality is there, and it's one of those scenarios where you see renderings. Usually, the renderings come out, and you're like, "This is incredible," And then it doesn't always quite live up to the renderings. And we almost have, I feel like, the opposite effect where the space when you walk in is better than I could have imagined the renderings. In terms of what's not there, well, one thing's not finished. We're going to have what we're calling the kids zone in the corner. It's not quite done, but there's going to be a little area with AstroTurf on the bottom. It's got a wall around it and features and we're going to have some shelves and kids games, magnet tiles, all that for people to hang out with, for kids to hang out while their parents are enjoying a beer, or who knows, maybe get some parents in there playing with the magnet tiles. And then that will hopefully be done in the next couple of weeks. And then there's some things that on the external side of the building we want to do, just the weather's not quite there. So we will repaint the building. One thing that we haven't done, and I don't know if there's a time frame, but I'd like to get some awnings outside and some sunshades. We're very lucky to have the patio that we do have. It really helped us get through the pandemic because we could have outdoor seating. It does get hot, and when it rains, there's no cover. So that's something that we hope to add at some point in the future.
Yeah. And I did bring my 15-year-old up there on Sunday. It was pretty much brunch time. She wasn't very happy that it was too early for jumbo wings. So definitely have to work on that for the menu. Apparently kids need jumbo wings at 11 o'clock in the morning. But I'm going to tag Ken. I'm going to tag Ken back in. He's got something for you.
Yeah, so I wanted to discuss real quick because Eric, who is the newest member of your team, is joining, and I want to kind of get a feel. Eric, what are you going to be bringing to the team, and what is your upcoming goal for the next 9 months? What can we expect out of you joining the Eastern Market Ferndale Project team?
You interviewing him for the job? He's already got the job.
Well, Eric was so nonchalant. His first day is technically Monday. So,
and I just moved in today. If you could see past what I'm looking at over here, I'm surrounded by a sea of boxes. It's a lot. It's awesome. It's super exciting. But to your question, yeah, I mean, one of the things I really want to start implementing is inventory and raw mat control. One thing that Dayne has kind of tasked me with is to use some programs like Ecos amongst the collective with, just inventory control, pricings, just having general consistency across the board. One thing I also want to start kind of implementing are just kind of standard operational procedures, some SOPs for literally everything across the board, just to make it easier for everybody. If somebody has a question about, CIPing a tank or SIPing or what our processes are for doing one thing, that it's just kind of consistent and uniform across our employees. And then just, focusing and letting our guys do what they do best, which is experimenting, consistently innovating, pushing the envelope, supporting local ingredients when we can, supporting local foundations and just the community like they've been doing. I think my role really is just going to kind of be consistency to start within the next 9 months. That's going to be my general focus.
Cool. Awesome. I'm going to pass it to Wendy. I know she wants to talk about one of the beers that she's drinking over there that you guys have made.
Sorry, I'm still learning how to unmute my microphone, apparently.
I mean, we've only been at it for over 2 years now. I'm just saying.
I know, right? So I have the Chunk Wheelie, and it is definitely juicy. Tell me a little bit about this one.
Sure. I'll take this one. So that was one of our bi-monthly beer releases that we had. I always forget, it's 2 weeks or a month ago, but due to the Ferndale model of being experimental and just trying to do new stuff, push the envelope, we had 2 releases that released, and Chunk Wheelie was one of them, where we found this Belgian strain of yeast that we liked, and we primarily focus on hoppy beer. So we were well, let's kind of do a hybrid of this old school Belgian, but throw some new school methods to it. And for me, what I love about my job is that I can do stuff like that and be creative. And that beer is just definitely has a lot going for it, but I think it's like super cool. Like you got this Belgian character from the East, but then you got like this nice hoppy melon, little bit of spice. Like it's definitely a complex beer, but in the glass, like it's like you just showed it. Like it looks great, it tastes great. It was a fun beer. I'm happy about that one.
The Belgian makes sense as to why I like it so much. So what is the favorite beer that you're making right now?
Oh man, it's a tough question. Luckily, we've been able to do some lager brews for Eastern Market at the Ferndale project location, so that's been fun. But every 2 weeks we have like bi-weekly releases of New England IPAs, and any new beer, regardless of what style it is. Like I always approach it in a way to try to make the best beer possible, and it's just fun every 2 weeks. I just love new beer, so I would say our next 2 releases are probably my 2 favorites. So, and it's just always going to keep that cycle.
I thought for sure you were going to say opening day IPA.
I mean, opening day IPA. If we want to talk about,
go ahead. What was that? If you want to talk about it?
I mean, if we want to talk about cold IPA.
Yeah, every once in a while, I know when the brewers are very excited about a beer because I'll constantly see them pulling pints off the tank. And one of the most recent one was opening day IPA. It's a cold IPA. And these guys, I'm surprised if we got half of our yield with the amount of pulls they had from the tank. But it is tasting very good.
That's exciting. And that every 2 week schedule there definitely gets me in there, because at least every 2 weeks I'm ordering beer to be delivered to my house. So well done with that. My other question is, how do you decide where you're going to brew which beer?
It's really based on the size of the batch. So we have a 5-barrel brew house in Eastern Market, and we have 5, 10, and 15 barrel tanks down there. And then at Ferndale, we have 10 and 20 barrel fermenters. And then Royal Oak has really kind of opened the door for us. We have a 30 barrel brew house there, and 30 barrel tanks. So it kind of depends on what we're self-distributing. Elephant Juice is still by far the beer we produce the most of. And so that really filled out the 20 barrel tanks at Ferndale. And with Royal Oak going online and the 30 barrel tanks, we can move all of our Elephant Juice production over there, which has been great because it allows us to start to increase the size of our batches at Ferndale. So all the Ferndale releases are always brewed at Ferndale. And then basically everything that we distro for the most part comes out of Royal Oak. And it's great that we've gotten to the point now where at Eastern Market, we're mostly just brewing for the tap room there. So our brewer there, Clara, is amazing. And she also enjoys experimenting, and she really has the ability to just brew on that 5 and 10, that 5 barrel brew house and brew for the tap list. So we can have a very diverse tap on an Eastern Market.
Awesome. It's good to know that too, because we're always curious and we talk about it, because sometimes we intermix the names of which beer came from which brewery.
Yeah.
So it's nice that we can kind of differentiate that now. I think Danny had a question.
Oh yeah, I accidentally put it in this chat. I'm so sorry. I was at both openings for Ferndale Project, and it was very exciting to have you here. But I just have to know, is Salad Days ever coming back?
Were you around when we brewed that, Rex?
I was not, but I've heard the legend.
So good.
Yeah, that was like one of our first brews at Ferndale, right?
Yeah,
I think it was perfect.
I'll let them know. There's definitely comments asking for it. The cool thing is doing a release weeks. We have the ability to slip it in. I don't remember what hops were in it. That was like Yeah, I think that was on the open tap list, right?
It was, and we still, it was April, March 2020. We still have old cans in the garage that we've never gotten around to recycling, and it just literally says salad days on it. That's all it is.
Yeah. So, all right, Rex, talk to Mike.
If ever it comes back.
We, Mike and I do eat salad for lunch every day, and we make a joke about brewing that beer almost every week.
Time.
It's not.
For those not watching on the video, you guys can check out a replay of the video if you're listening via the podcast over at youtube.com/Better on Draft. But somebody went behind Rex just recently, realized he was on camera, and jolted out of the frame. But Dayne, this is going to be more for you. As a lot of people are aware or may not be aware, Roke purchased Dark Horse and moved all of their production over into Marshall, Michigan, which left this giant building open and available. And you guys went ahead and bought it, I believe. What is the plan? Is there, you kind of mentioned a potential third brewery on the way. What is the main, because that place is huge. That place was built for production.
Yeah.
Are you trying to get to that size of production sometime soon, or is that a 10-year goal? Explain to me what the theory was purchasing that building.
Yeah, for sure. We lease it, we didn't purchase it, we were able to walk into a really nice, affordable lease, because and a lot of credit to Roke. I mean, they built that brewery out to be a production brewery. We kind of walked in and had everything set up. Roke has changed the way that we have to think about production, because we've always brewed at capacity. So when we were Eastern Market with the 5-barrel brew house, I think we started with just 3 5-barrel tanks. And then once that wasn't enough, we added a 15-barrel, and then we added 2 10-barrels. And then we were brewing at capacity there. And when we first opened back when we started talking in 2016, but back then our plan was really just everything over the bar, no distro. And so anything we had excess, we started self-distributing. And then we didn't have anything to self-distribute. So that's what led to us acquiring the Axle space. And pretty quickly, even during the pandemic, we were brewing at capacity there. So we filled that place with as many additional tanks as we could fit, and then brewed at capacity. And the cool thing about Royal Oak is that we have so much space, there's already drops, that we can basically hit any production number that we want. We'll have to add tanks over time, but it gives us the ability to make more beer. Now, that being said, we still do. So I guess as an example, Roke had 120 and 90 barrel tanks. All their equipment went on auction. We bought a lot of their equipment, but we didn't buy any of those tanks. For us, we'd rather start with 30-barrel batches and then go into it. So long story short, we have the ability to increase our capacity to be probably a top 5 brewery in Michigan in terms of production. But we're not going to rush to that. But it does open doors where we can think about batch size and increase. We can move all our elephant juice production over there. We can do 30 barrels of a beer like Punchki beer that we do for Fat Tuesday and sells out. So that's been cool. We will be opening a customer facing component, but we don't really have a date on that right now. We haven't talked about this publicly, but our focus is going to be back on Eastern Market now that Ferndale's remodeled, where we're looking to expanding that space for now. So we'll continue to use Roke as a production space. But we're going to be doing a pretty major renovation on Eastern Market over the next year and a half, and then move to Royal Oak, which if anyone's watching that lives in Royal Oak, they're probably going to be pretty upset hearing that. But I think most people will be excited to hear that Eastern Market's going to be our emphasis. It's going to have a rooftop beer garden. It's going to have an event space. So we're pretty excited about that.
We'll say I have some suggestions.
I'd love to hear them. We just got the first set of plans back, and I've sent them to Josh, and other folks down at the tap room saying, "What do you guys think?" I think I got them yesterday, Thursday. Yeah, yesterday.
I'm going to throw it over to Nick.
All right, so I'm gonna start with an easy one, and I'm gonna go into maybe a little bit more harder one. I love collaborations with breweries. I love how they can bring people in groups together and people that we don't normally would expect. So I want to talk about the Detroit Pistons one, because that's the first time I've learned that someone's done something with any sports team that I can recall in the Detroit area. But talk about how that one came to be, what inspired it to be a New England IPA, and who, obviously the logo, I think is one of the coolest logos that I've seen from sports in a very, very long time. So talk about, there's the can. If you can watch it on Facebook or on all the other mediums, there's the can. Dayne just showed it. Talk about how that came to be and why a New England.
You guys are going to love this. It actually goes back to the first time we were on the podcast. Matt was throwing out beer names, and one of them was Same Old Lager. And as you guys probably have talked about on the show, at some point, we got into some trouble with the Lions. And that is actually why we are partners with the Pistons. So when that happened, we had to deal with that situation, and the Pistons reached out to us and they said, "Hey, sounds like the Lions are giving you some trouble. Would you be interested in partnering with us?" At the time, Royal Oak wasn't even on our radar. So we didn't feel that we had the ability to produce at the scale that we could partner with someone like the Pistons. Unfortunately, at the time, we had to turn it down. But we kept in touch and kept a positive relationship with our friends over at the Pistons. And then when Royal Oak got announced and we finalized that, I reached back out and said, "I think we actually have the ability to partner with you guys." And that's when that relationship started. It was pretty late in last year. It was pretty close to when the season started. Truthfully, our beer isn't in the stadium as much as I would like it to be, just because they had done a lot of their sets. And the first beer we did with them is called D-Up. It's a Kolsch and lime. And that was the first beer to be in the stadium, and that was cool. And then they really wanted us to do a beer for 313 Day. And they wanted to call it 313 IPA. We had actually already been experimenting with a hazy that we could sell at a more affordable price point. It's really hard to do with the amount of hops that we put in our beer, especially on the Ferndale project side. But over the last 2 years, all the experimenting that Rex and team have done, we've started to figure out what hops can work well that are at a lower price point. And the really cool thing is they're often Michigan hops. So we moved forward with making a all Michigan hopped New England IPA for 313. Truthfully, we're lucky if we're breaking even based on the price point. But we're able to make a beer that we're excited about, that tastes good, and hopefully the masses will like as well. I just found out that last week was the first week ever that Elephant Juice wasn't our highest selling beer through self-distribution. It was 313. And I think a lot of that has to do with the price point, but it's also a great beer and it has a very cool can. And I think the Pistons partnership is part of that. So it'll be interesting to see if that continues or it's a flash because it came out recently. So we'll see how it plays out.
Quick follow-up. Since you already had mentioned that it's already at LCA to some degree already, is this the potential of maybe trying to get a second team that plays at LCA, maybe the Red Wings? I'm not going to worry about the Pistons or the Lions because apparently you're not on their good side by the sound of it. Is another Detroit sports team in the works at all, or is it a dream, or am I just making stuff up?
Probably making stuff up. I'm a huge Wings fan. The only tickets I've ever owned are Wings tickets. But it's crazy when you're working with these sports teams in the stadiums and how complex it is. You could either have a relationship with a sports team like the Pistons or the Red Wings, You could have a relationship with Olympia that actually owns the building. So when you see the Goose Island bar, when you go to a game, they actually have a relationship with Olympia, and not the Pistons or Red Wings. And then you have a concession company that actually runs all the concessions. Ultimately, the concession company is who decides what product is in there. So often you will see that Bell's and Founders, for example, have a relationship with them, which is why you see so much of that beer, or some of the bigger breweries as well, AB InBev breweries. So we've learned a lot over the past year of just kind of just managing all those different relationships. But unfortunately, we would have to have a relationship with the Pistons and the Red Wings if we wanted to do beers with both. And those relationships they are costly.
Yep. Okay. All right. Change of pace. Apparently, there's a notice at the building that you guys don't do flights on Saturdays at Ferndale Project. Now, it's a little unusual, at least in my opinion, it's a little unusual that you're saying, no, we don't do flights on this day. What's the reasoning for no flights on Saturday nights? Do you see this as a trend, or do you guys see something specifically with Ferndale Project that you see as a benefit that you guys can use in your favor to run your business? Why or is this just, you know what, it's just too much trouble, we just don't want to deal with the flights on Saturdays, it's a busy day? Why no flights on Saturdays?
Yeah, I mean, it's more the latter. It's really putting our customer experience team first. We knew that when we were opening, we would be really busy. So it actually started with no flights, and then it said no flights on weekends, and now it says flights on Saturdays. And the hope is eventually we can get to flights, but on Saturdays at times we have a pretty long line, and we saw that flights add pretty significant time to that. But I love the ability to offer flights purely from a business standpoint. They have a great margin, and they allow people to try a plethora of beers. So we'd love to get to the point where we offer flights across the board. That's more kind of tied to our opening and just our business levels. And I'll also say that our staff have the ability to ignore that rule. So my hope is that if you're there on a Saturday and it's not busy, they would be willing to still offer a flight. But it's much easier for me on the sign say no flights, and then the staff be the good guys, as opposed to we saying we offer flights and then the staff have to say we're too busy, sorry.
Out of curiosity, any pushback from that decision on Saturdays, or has it been have the customers been well receiving of the message?
I've heard that people have asked, and I haven't heard of anyone that's been like particularly upset. I will say that everyone has been really wonderful from a customer standpoint these first couple of weeks. On St. Patrick's Day in particular, mainly driven by the weather and our patio. I mean, we had the longest line I've ever seen. I was really worried. I was busting. We have a run club. I did run club, and then I got back and I was wearing like a tank top and shorts, and I was busting tables. And I was like freaking out because of how long the line was. And everyone was just super nice and kind from a customer standpoint. And one thing that I found is most important to be just upfront and have that information up there. The last thing you want to do is show up and get there and try to order a flight. It's not available. But so far, people seem to be okay with it. But there's definitely people that want flights. I mean, you're not going to make everyone happy. There's people that want their bourbon barrel-aged peanut butter volcano stout in a pint. And we have to say,
yeah,
we can't do that.
Well, Rob, tell us how you really feel.
At all times. I want that shit on tap all year long with the cookie on the side. Make that shit happen.
Sound like a brewer. Everything in pints.
All right. I believe, Ken, I'm turning it over to you now.
All right. Thank you so much. So I'm really excited because this is going to be the first time that we ever had Rex on the show. Rex, I did a little bit of digging in your history, saw that you worked for Homes. What has your lineage and transition been like? Tell me, a 1 minute brief history of Rex, how you got into the brewing business, and how it brought you to Ferndale Project Eastern Market.
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, I just think I'm very fortunate and grateful and a little bit lucky. I've only lived in Michigan for the past 5 years. I'm originally from Phoenix, Arizona. And one day I was like, all right, I want to figure out what I want to do for the rest of my life. And then I got into Central Michigan for their brewing program. I ended up moving to Michigan to attend said program. And then the Holmes Brewery was opening in Ann Arbor, which I got hired at. And then I just worked from cleaning kegs up to the brew deck, and eventually felt like I needed to keep challenging myself to another role in the brewing business. And luckily Ferndale Project was looking for a brewer, and I applied, got the job. And then I've worked my way from just cleaning kegs to the brew deck, and all I want to do is just make beer.
Well, you mentioned you went to Central Michigan. If I'm not mistaken, Eric, you went to GRCC?
I went to CMU.
I did not. I went to I went to school for music education. I wanted to be a music teacher.
Okay.
But I didn't go to brewing school.
That means that there is a website out there that is lying. And that makes me look bad that I didn't check it up before I called it out. But Wendy, I know you had a question.
No, I didn't go to GRCC. No.
Wendy, we might have lost Wendy.
I think we might have lost Wendy.
That's all right.
She is frozen.
The time and age that we live in, we think we'd get good internet. Oh my gosh, it is a crazy day today. Nobody's internet is wanting to work well. With that in mind, I'm going to pass it over to Rob real quick while I try to manage the video.
All right. So one question that I had, it's just kind of thinking about, the going to the facility and getting broke, and in a time where you're in the midst of the pandemic, and actually the one thing I wanted to ask about was really with the investment plan that you guys went into with doing getting the community to invest into Ferndale Project and Eastern Market, and I guess talk to us about what it was like, putting that plan out and just kind of saying, okay, we're expecting 50,000 to 250,000. And then suddenly within a week, you're 3/4 of the way to the absolute goal of $250,000. That has to be just like ridiculousness.
Yeah. I mean, 2020 looking back was just filled with uncertainty. And for us, we had no idea what 2021 would be like. Would things be back to normal? Would they be worse? And so with that uncertainty in mind, we thought it was important that we have some money set aside so that we continue to survive. I feel super lucky just at the fact that we were able to maintain all our staff and not lay anyone off when the pandemic. A lot of people talk about how unlucky it was to open Ferndale Project a couple of weeks before the pandemic. But it was a bit of a blessing because we were slammed those 2 weeks. So we were able to put a little bit of a cushion in place, and then the team responded, and we launched a bunch of things that kept us afloat. And one thing about just kind of the way that we operate, and really I think beer in general, is January is always your slowest month and February is your slowest month. And without knowing what was going to happen, we knew that we would potentially need some investment, and I'd rather ask for it before things were dire. But the way, to your point, that the community responded was amazing. And really, I think that's been the case since our opening of both locations. Ferndale in particular, they lost a brewery that I think they enjoyed. I mean, it's pretty cool live in a neighborhood and be able to walk to a brewery. And Axel and Livernois Tap was very much that. And so when they closed, it was heartbreaking for the folks there. And then when we announced we were coming, everyone was like, we're going to help these guys. And then the pandemic hit and they're like, we're not losing another brewery. So it was cool to see everyone come out and support us when that happened. And the same thing when we were looking for investment. And the other part of it was like, we could talk to a bank. But at the end of the day, I'd rather give that return to people that believe in us and have faith in us and our customers, as opposed to giving it to a bank. So it was awesome to see everyone respond. And every quarter we cut a check. And it's the interest honestly is much higher than we would have paid a bank, but it feels good to be giving to someone who believed in us, and really Ferndale came out, but we also got people from like all over. It was pretty cool to see like people believed in, they either had family that lived nearby, or they had visited. And so we got a lot of people that came out and supported us that way. And that's one of the few checks that I feel good every quarter sending out. I'm like, this is very much deserved.
Right. And I'm not sure about anyone else, but Danny and I really enjoyed those checks. We appreciate it.
It's funny. Like you have to do, I think it was $100 minimum. And I was like, before we released it, I was like, I'm going to test this thing. So I was the first one at 100. Every quarter I get like 7 cents.
Thank you.
Yes. We get it. But all right, I'm gonna pass it back to Ken here.
All right. If you can believe it or not, we have been chatting for about 50 minutes now. It has been great to catch up and learn a little bit more about what's going on with Ferndale Project. As we end the show, we all decide to ask a final question of you guys, give you guys a little bit of a chance to do some promotion or potentially, answer some fun stuff. Now, I have a question because I have a bone to pick with Dayne here. Because the last time I saw Dayne, he literally kicked my ass in bags. It was the ugliest performance I've ever had, and it didn't help that I believe it was either 3 or 4 turns, and not like 3 or 4 each. Like I was with Matt Bush, Matt threw, I threw, Matt threw, and we lost. That was it. And I need to know, are you still that good? And when can I get my revenge?
So the first thing I'll say is it's not you, Ken, it's Matt. Going into that, Matt's going to be talking smack. So I was like, I need to end this quick or I'm going to be hearing from Matt all evening. So I had a lot of adrenaline and momentum. I felt like I needed it. I'm down to play whenever. I will say, I think we just busted the bag sets back out at Eastern Market with the good weather. But I'm not sure if I'm that good anymore. I haven't really played since probably that time. We've had a couple staff events where I know they were busted out, and I think I lost both times. We just did an event at Fulling Warehouse up in Grand Rapids, and I also lost there. So I don't know. Now might be your time. I'm kind of licking my wounds.
Well, I'll leave this question open for Rex and Eric. What game do you think, drinking game, so not necessarily like drinking like beer pong, but either it could be beer pong, but games you play while you drink or games you play to drink. What do you think you could beat the entirety of Eastern Market Brewing Ferndale Project staff? What is your game? We'll start with Rex.
They're both going to say lager drinking.
We will have a lager in hand while we do this for sure. I don't know. Since that Pistons collab, I think we're all like on the basketball train. Like I think I could beat anybody on the brew staff in a game of pig.
Okay, I think that's the first time somebody's brought that up. What about you, Eric?
Yeah, mine's kind of unique. I would say like Hammerschlagen or Steinhoisting. I think those are probably my two strongest like beer related drinking games.
I don't think I've played Hammerschlagen in 5 years, and I kind of now I want to get a hammer and a nail and see if I can still do it. Well, what about you, Dayne? I'll let you answer. Obviously bags is not your game anymore. What game do you think you could beat the rest of the crew in?
That's related to beer drinking. I don't know. Honestly, I don't drink that much beer anymore.
Bags isn't necessarily, it's related to beer drinking because usually people drink while playing. So
yeah, Yeah. Yeah, man. I don't know. I got to think about that. I don't think there's anything. I used to play a lot of soccer, and kickball. Kickball is a game that I do feel like I excel at. I haven't done it in a while, but I don't think I've ever played kickball sober. So I think I might throw kickball out there.
I have a friend that tries to get groups of people to play slosh ball, which is kickball, but everyone has like a solo cup in hand at all times. So, but Rob, what's your final question for the crew?
All right, so it's going to be two questions, one for Dayne, one for Rex and Eric. So I'll start with the one for Rex and Eric. I'm curious, favorite musical artist or band to listen to while brewing? And the one for Dayne, I'm going to take straight out of the chat from one Miss Dina Polachicchio. Who is your favorite and your best trivia host ever?
I'm laughing because these guys were listening to some wild music. When was that? Was that yesterday? The day before?
I mean, we listen to a lot. Like it's a good mix throughout the week. It's pretty good.
Yeah, it's eclectic. It's everything.
Yeah, like I mean, from jam bands to like some weird stuff, like weird electronic. Like we were listening to like deep house yesterday. It was great. But like I mean, oh, it's so good. It's just like every person in the brewery like has their one style of music, and whenever it goes on, we all just like vibe to it. It's great. But I guess if I have to answer the question, I'm just gonna say a band called Wolves in the Throne Room. You can look them up. It's just some weird black metal, but that's cool. The beers seem to enjoy it. And then my favorite trivia host is obviously Robert. So.
Oh, hey.
Eric, I'm curious. I haven't heard your music.
Yeah, I get down with some Bach. No, I'm just kidding. I like Bach, but not when I'm brewing. No, man, it depends. Like people are seasonal drinkers. I'm definitely a seasonal like brew deck, like playlist type person. If I'm feeling like hip hop, I listen to a lot of like Javon and Lido. I love Tribe Called Quest.
Yes.
If I'm feeling more of like the upbeat kind of like energetic stuff, I'm a huge fan of like melodic 90s skate punk, which is like literally the Tony Hawk soundtrack is like my shit. So
that is the shit right there.
So I get down.
Love that soundtrack.
Yeah, I don't know. I like it all, man. I really do. I get down with some R&B too. Like Silk Sonic right now is definitely on repeat. Yeah, I like it all.
You'll fit in well then, Eric. There's a little bit of everything. We do need to upgrade the sound system at Royal Oak, or at least figure out how to get it moving. Ferndale has an awesome one. In Eastern Market, the brewery's just tap rooms. It's whatever they're listening to. But Royal Oak needs an upgrade for sure. I think it's like Alex Sebastian's like personal speaker right now. Well, Robert, I don't know if Angela reached out. I asked her to. We do need a trivia host at Ferndale Project.
So I have heard. That will have to be a talk in progress with my wife, because hosting 2 nights in a row is probably problematic for the household. So we will see if ever there is a universe where breweries are open on Mondays. I would without a doubt be the guy.
So Monday would be your day.
Monday would be. That's just what I told Angela, was Monday would be my day. Doing Tuesday is a little
All right, we'll think about it.
Okay.
We're open. The cafe's open in the mornings on Monday, so we're kind of dabbling.
I don't know if I can do trivia in the morning.
Well, no, we got to open later.
We gotta have more coffee. There's got to be more coffee.
Nick, what's your final question for these fine young gentlemen?
All right. I had to create one here because I wanted to see how low everyone is gonna go here with this one. And all 3 of you have to give me your own unique answer. I'm gonna rattle 4 beers, and you have to give me your top, from 1 to 4, the one that you will drink all the time to the number 4 you won't drink at all, and you all have to answer. And those 4 beers are Natty Ice or Natty Light. So I'll give you a choice. Natty Ice or Natty Light, Hamm's, Keystone, or Milwaukee's Best. In order, 1 being that you'll drink it all the time, and 4 that you won't even touch the stuff. What are your unique answers? Dayne, I'll start with you, Dayne.
No, let's let the Crispy Boys go first.
What was
Does this also include, or is it, he's going to let the Crispy Boys go first, but I was going to ask, is there the stipulation that Keystone is possibly going to cost more now?
No. We won't have that in there, but I'm sure we'll talk about that later. Dave, we'll start with you.
All right, it's Hamm's, Keystone,
Natty, and the Beast.
Natty, Milwaukee's Best. Oh man! And what would if I had to drink them all the time? I mean, so I went to Northwestern in Chicago, outside Chicago in Evanston. I'd say of those beers, probably drank Milwaukee's Best the most, and Keystone as well. Those were the top 2. Man, I don't know. I'd say all the time. I'd probably go Keystone. Hamm's is a hard one because I feel like it might be what I enjoy the most, but I don't know if I want to be drinking it all the time. It tastes like water. So I'd go Keystone, Milwaukee's Best, just because of the memories. Probably Hamm's. And what was last? What was the
Natty Ice?
Yeah, Natty Ice would definitely be last.
All right, there we go. Rex, let's go to you next. What's your 4 in order from best to worst that you would drink?
I mean, number 1 obviously is Natty Ice. I mean, come on. I mean, there's nothing better than a Natty Ice, right? No, it's just going to be Hamm's, and then everything else is number 4. None of the above. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate your honesty. Eric, let's go with you. What do you got?
This was like the easiest question of the night for me. It's obviously Hamm's is number 1. I could drink that all day, every day. I love that beer.
Great answer.
Probably Milwaukee's after that, Keystone, and then Natty. But if I had to make my own list, and I'll just throw this out there, I got an old style tattoo. I'm a Chicago boy at heart. Old style's number 1. Hamm's Light would be number 2. And then Stroh's, and then probably Milwaukee's Best in my own list.
No,
all right.
No Natty Bo.
No way.
No way. Or how do I mute you, delete you off this podcast?
We're say running... the Stroh's. Is it the blue can Stroh's or the Bohemian Stroh's?
Yeah, so this is new to me because I've never had Bohemian. I've never had it.
Do they sell that anymore, guys?
No, I think they stopped making it.
They stopped making it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I've only had the blue one.
That's like the best one.
Like Stroh's Lager or something.
Yeah, Stroh's Lager is was king. Like in college at least. So
good.
Oh yeah.
Danny, what's your final question for these gentlemen?
Mine's more of like an opinion observation. So I've been to Rogue a lot of times. Great food, okay beer back in the day. But did it ever make you feel like you were in like the lair of a supervillain when you were in there? Yeah, right? Yes, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Why is that so true?
What was it?
Yeah, I can tell stories. You kind of cut out. You're talking about Roke, right?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah, I got nervous because I didn't hear the brewery and I heard good food, okay beer. I was like, I hope she's not talking about us. But no, Roke. So it's funny. Everything went on auction, and then a number of things didn't get purchased on auction. And Roke reached out to us directly, trying to negotiate if we would buy the bar that was cemented into the ground, the huge chandeliers, and then the purple curtain. Somehow someone actually did buy those chandeliers. The bar is still there, and the purple curtain is still there. I learned that curtain is probably is very expensive. I actually offered to pay money for someone to take it away, but they wouldn't do it. So we're gonna find something to do with that purple curtain. Shane, who does all our packaging, he's asked for a few strips of fabric. I don't know why. Shane's always up to something, so we're gonna let him take it and see what he comes up with.
Okay, Godspeed.
Yeah, right now
that place
is an office, so all kind of administrative team is working in the tap room, and they're getting that vibe right now. So you might see some changes in our can designs.
That place was just straight up like if Lex Luthor bought a bar and tried to turn it into a comedy club. Just looks so damn weird.
I mean, I've got nothing but love for the Johns over there at Roke. They, you could tell with what Danny said, it made a lot of sense after our podcast with them, because they definitely have that like very interesting vibe to them. But getting to know them and having those conversations, they are just hysterical people who had a great dream to build a brewery. And I mean, they're still crushing it over in Marshall. And I think that was the best decision for every person in this. You guys buying the building, them buying Dark Horse being bought. I think everyone is winning this. So that's going to do it here for Better on Draft Podcast, the Michigan series. Stay tuned. If you're listening live, we're going to go offline, come back. We actually got Untapped coming on here for a special half episode following to talk about Beers Without Beards, the upcoming festival in Portland, Maine. So
we will be there.
Eastern Market will be there. Awesome. That's going to do it for the podcast. Go check them out. They are in Eastern Market and Ferndale. That's 8 in Livernois. We're Livernois between 8 and 9 miles. So don't go walking around downtown and saying like, where are you guys? You gotta either take the nice long walk or take the drive down Livernois. But that's going to do it, folks. Thank you so much. Eric, good luck on your new digs. I hope to not see you in a year interviewing with another brewery here.
Third time's a charm. No, we're here.
All right. Well, no matter what you think of your beer, we think it's Better on Draft. Have a good night.